calling this meeting to order at 5:30. First, a reminder that meetings of the Select Board are meetings conducted in public. They are not meetings of the public. Nonetheless, members of the public shall be afforded reasonable opportunities to express opinions about matters conducted by the Select Board, so long as order is maintained. The rules for public comment are: at the conclusion of a Select Board discussion on an agenda item, but before any action is taken, there may be 10 minutes afforded to public comment. Comments made by the public must be addressed to the Chair or to the Select Board as a whole, and not to any individual members of the Select Board or members of the public. Members of the public must be acknowledged by the Chair before speaking. If a member of the public has already spoken on a topic, they shall not be recognized again until others have first been given the opportunity to comment. Order and decorum shall be maintained throughout the meeting. Personal, impertinent, threatening, or profane remarks will not be tolerated. For those who are participating via Zoom, please note that chat is not an appropriate avenue for public comment. All public comments must be made verbally when acknowledged by the Chair. A reminder to all that this meeting is being recorded and may appear on the internet. So, are there any adjustments to the agenda? Does anybody have?
And you might have said it, turn off electronic devices?
Turn off all electronic devices. Trade backs in their upright position.
Ready for takeoff.
Ready for takeoff. Okay.
Exactly. Airplane mode.
Okay. So adjustments to the agenda. I don't believe we have any. Does anybody have any adjustments to the agenda? Okay. Approval.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I have a question about the agenda. Item 10. Under item 10, we see Select Board Addenda. What are they?
On the back side, which I guess it's not really the back side for you, but the next page is a bunch of items that we came up with during one of our work sessions. And it was suggested during one of our meetings that we put that in some place, a parking lot basically, so that we remember that these are items that we agreed that we thought were important.
So should I understand that when they were actually on the agenda, they'll appear somewhere else on the agenda, not under other business Select Board Addenda?
Yep, they're just there to remind us that they're there.
And
Okay,
I
I think they are a very interesting set of projects. I take the liberty of offering one more for your consideration, which is water and sewer capacity. Thank you.
That wasn't on here?
it certainly has been a topic of discussion if it isn't on here.
I guess
But
it's not really on here. Okay, thank you. We did talk about it. All right, moving on to the approval of minutes. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of, oh, no, I can't because I wasn't there.
Oh,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September 21st, 2022.
I'll second.
all right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of September 21st, 2022. It looks like the change that I was going to make has already been made. Good. At one point, Eric and Josh were one person. Oh no, it's still there. I'm sorry. There, it is still there. So warrants to the
Eric
treasurer,
Laughlin.
Eric Laughlin,
Wow.
is not on the select board. No one here by that name. So that should be
Item 4 needs
item
to be
4.
corrected.
Yeah. Did anybody else see anything?
I thought they were good minutes.
Yeah,
And I wasn't even there, so.
It's a good
You
discussion.
got a lot
No,
done.
yeah. Yeah, it was a good meeting. Anybody have any other changes? Okay, hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed?
And I will abstain, this is Josh.
Right. Oh, I'm missing my agenda, okay. Okay, now we're on to public comment on items not on the agenda. There's nobody in the room. Mr. Fairman? Mr. Fairman, you're on mute.
Thank you. I guess I'm not now.
Nope.
Okay, good. Thanks for reminding me. Madam Chair, my understanding is that this special Town of Putney Select Board meeting this evening is postponed from your regular meeting yesterday evening as a religious accommodation requested by a Putney resident. And I'm wondering, is that person present at this meeting?
It wasn't, I'd like to clarify that it was not requested by a specific resident. It was made as a recommendation from the Equity and Inclusion Committee.
So it is simply upon recommendation of the Equity and Inclusion Committee.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll mention that I understand this from the town manager that this will be discussed further at another meeting when I shall share some research that I have completed on the subject. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody else online? Does not appear so. Does the select board have anything to say? It isn't on the agenda? All right, then moving on to boards, committees, and commissions. We don't have anything under there. Select board items, new business. First is the membership policy, pay.
Yes, I took liberty to take a stab at updating a membership policy. Now, what do we do when there's, how do we get this information?
Up on the web to the public?
Yeah, or is it essential that we do? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah,
I
we
mean, it
should.
doesn't, ideally, since you're handing it out at the meeting, it doesn't have to have gone out before the meeting.
The idea
But
would have
ideally,
been-
it would have gone out
Right.
before the meeting.
And it would have gone out in this packet of stuff that goes out.
Should we
Yeah.
pass that on?
Okay.
Karen, if she-
Apologies.
We
We
might,
can probably, do you have this as an electronic form? Has it already gone to?
I do, but I don't have it here with me
Okay,
now.
all right.
So,
Anyway,
okay,
in the future,
in the
yes. which
future,
that's-
yes, okay.
So in the future, Peg, if you want to share this with the public, you need to send it to me. And then I can put it in the packet
It with-
online,
Okay,
so people can view it.
great.
This is just because of the meeting change, it's just been kind
Okay. Well,
of, we're
hopefully,
upside down right now.
okay. It's not that complicated. Howard, you're the only one who is online right now, so I think you'll be able to follow with us, I think. So basically, I took the committee membership policy and I tweaked it and I put in the comments section what the 6 tweaks were that I made. And I thought maybe if we went through them individually, if we agreed with them, that we could deal with each thing independently,
Okay.
right? So the first thing is that the original is only designed, the original policy is only for committee membership and it only references advisory committees. And that seemed like an oversight. It seemed like we wanted this to address all committees and boards and commissions. The membership issue for all of those things that we're appointing for. So that was my first. Do we want to?
We're talking about the title?
Yes, the title, and it appears then throughout the policy. But that's the first
Okay.
issue. Do we want to, do we want to broaden this out to be beyond just the advisory committee? Do we want to?
What do you, I think, there doesn't,
Confused.
what's that?
And I'm confused right now.
could-
So from committee to committee/commission/board,
Membership,
yes.
right, and then it would, throughout the document, throughout the policy, I reference the committees, commissions, and boards,
Right.
not just committee.
Commissions are, need to be careful, because some of those
Or
are
boards.
quasi,
Right.
so they would not be part of this membership policy.
It's possible that there are pieces to, well, we only, back up. There are some commissions that we do appoint to. So the
Mhm.
planning commission is one that we appoint to. The conservation commission is one that we appoint to. Those are not elected. The cemetery commission is elected, but if for some reason there was a vacancy, we would appoint somebody to that commission in the same way we would appoint somebody to the lister board.
We have
or
the
s-
option, we
or
have
the
the
select-
option. to-
Right, or
yeah.
the select board,
Yeah.
yeah. So it
Can
may
I-
be that there may be pieces to, when we get all the way down through this, there may be pieces that don't apply to those situations. But I think that we do want to encompass some kind of standardization for all of those appointments to some degree.
Maybe there's a better way to say it.
Yeah, I'm thinking perhaps Town of Putney membership appointment policy, or
Okay?
something along those lines, so that it would apply to everything that we appoint people to.
Including
Or appointed.
employees.
Including,
Well, no, it would be people we appoint, well, we do sometimes appoint
well, we would
employees.
appoint a town manager or a town clerk, right?
Mhm.
Which would be a whole different process.
That would be a totally different process. I guess
Yeah,
I'm fine with, let's say that in general, we do want to do this. Let's see what we get
Okay.
later,
All
okay?
right. So that,
duly noted.
duly noted. Okay, second point was just clarifying, because there's been some confusion, although it is in this policy, in the policy that we had, but clarifying that the interest comes to the select board.
I would say it comes to the town manager. I mean, I think somebody can come, well,
Go through the town manager, but come to the select board first.
So what
not
about
necessarily.
vetting through the committee?
That's the discussion here, right?
Right.
That's where people are getting confused, and there's a lot of there's misunderstandings about what it is. And I don't really feel that strongly about it. I just want us to have it documented and be consistent about it.
Right, and we don't say anything about, in the current one, we don't say anything about the committees
Right.
or commissions recommending prospective appointees. I do feel like that's important.
Well,
that they
it's gonna
have some
come down
kind of-
to that, that's
Okay.
number 5.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
so number 2 is just clarifying that the communication is made to the select board. If we want to.
I think the vehicle for that would be the town manager, though, so,
I mean,
I mean, it could be either way, but if we're talking about somebody, you know, if somebody comes to you and says, I'm really interested on being on a committee, my first response would be, well, if you're really interested, you should talk to Karen. So, you know, I'm happy to talk to you about it, you know, so on and so forth, but either, and I agree with you, it shouldn't necessarily be in writing, but expression of interest in committees should be addressed to the town manager, perhaps, or to be reviewed by the select board.
Well, that's how it's gonna get on the agenda,
Exactly.
right?
Right.
So I think
Yeah.
not that you have a big role in the, other than
No, no.
administratively, right?
Right.
So, and clarifying perhaps. So then maybe,
Yeah, no, that's a good question, is whether that, I mean, maybe the vehicle doesn't need to be identified in this policy.
Well, Karen, as I understand it from what we're talking about, would be a conduit.
Exactly.
right,
So, and
Well,
that
you
may
could
not
say
apply, that may not
restricted.
apply to this policy. It may be that the policy can just say that, you know, shall be presented to the select board or something like that, which would mean but the procedure would be to go through the town.
Right, I mean, we could easily change that by saying a prospective member should communicate their interest to the town manager, who will add it to the select board agenda. I mean, that's kind of what,
So then what happens?
Magic happens.
then,
What do you mean? You're supposed to answer that.
Well, no.
So it goes on the
so-
agenda. Well, it doesn't necessarily go on the agenda.
Okay.
So, but we.
So we're adding an extra step, just so you know.
Well, we,
Think this through, right? So it comes to me, which in the past they did, and I
Right.
always brought it to the select board.
right,
And then at some point it changed, it came through me, it went to the committee,
Mhm.
they vetted,
Right.
then it came to the select board as a recommendation. So do you not want the committees to vet interested candidates?
Before we.
I
have a
mean,
chance.
I can tell you what I think, but I don't care
What do
so
you
much. I just wanted to be clear.
right.
So I think it makes sense to come to us and that the select board may solicit feedback from the current members before appointing a new member to a committee. So it's kind of an optional, it's not saying we always will do that.
Right.
But it says we may and we intend, that's a good practice. But I think the point of not having it go to the committee and having them forward it to us is then the committee becomes, it can become very
A
insular.
jury,
Sure.
yeah.
Like if you have a particular, perspective on the committee, then that committee is gonna limit itself to other people who, I don't know, or it may, not that it will, but this eliminates that a
shouldn't,
little bit.
but-
It shouldn't,
shouldn't,
but
but it
this
does.
stuff, but what I like about this, what I added here was that when the person expressed interest, number 4, basically, that it connects membership to the mission of the committee, commission, or board, that basically we're asking them to communicate to us their interest, stating how their participation will further the mission of the committee, commission, or board. And it's up to the person, so that we make a connection between what the purpose of the board or committee or commission is and what this person wants to do. And that it has to match the mission of that commission, board, or committee. We don't want, it's reasonable not to put someone on the environmental board who can't get behind the mission of that board, or that commission.
Right.
The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, I don't feel compelled to put somebody on that committee who doesn't support the mission of that committee.
Well, I think we all agree about that.
But it's not explicit, and
Yes.
I think it's important to say that we are looking for people who will, and if committees, commissions, and boards don't have missions clear enough, then that's a whole nother issue.
Well, I think we've been in the process of writing resolutions
Yeah.
for all of the committees.
Yeah.
I think we might have left off, but we have been trying to clarify what they're at, like the ARPA
Yeah.
committee. We have had experience with people who have made a very good argument for why they should be on a committee, and it turned out that they kind of had the opposite effect on the committee. So there is some benefit to having the committee members, the sitting committee members, at least be able to give feedback. Maybe not necessarily prevent a nomination from coming through, but just provide some feedback.
Well, and that's why
So-
I have that in here,
Yeah.
and it wasn't in the last one.
Right.
And I put it in there, to me, the question is, do we want to say we will always do that, we may do that, we
Has the option
has
to.
the option, that's what I put.
Yeah.
I say we may.
No, I think that's appropriate. I also think, I don't think that, I wouldn't have used the term vetting through the committee, because I don't think that's accurate for what we've been doing. And I'm not putting those words in your mouth. I'm
It's
just
not
saying.
there,
Yeah,
yeah.
no, I'm just saying, I don't think that's really, I think
We've
for
started
practical
with
purposes, that may be what happened, but I don't think that was necessarily the intent. I think it was more to solicit feedback
Right.
from the committee as to whether they think
Right.
it would be a valuable member. It's not, you know, just because, I mean, if we think there's somebody who's gonna be great on a committee and the committee says, boy, we don't think they're gonna be great, sorry, you gotta deal with it,
Right.
you know? Ideally, that doesn't happen,
Right.
but I can imagine a scenario in which it would.
Well, and that's why the language that I put here is the select board may solicit feedback from the current membership before appointing new members.
I think that's great.
Yeah, the only thing that I can think of that, and it's just a workflow thing, committees meet at once a month, we meet twice a week, or twice a month, twice a week.
Okay, so,
Feels
Feels
like
like we meet twice a week.
yeah,
And I know from the outside looking in, there have been times where there's been like major gaps in the time period between when I actually said I'd like to be on this committee, and when I get appointed. And by then, 2 months have passed, and I'm really just looking to help out, right? So I wouldn't want to delay somebody's appointment because we decided that we wanted to solicit feedback from the committee. So I'd like to have some kind of standardized workflow, I guess, which is why I like the way that it's been, where it goes to Karen, it goes to the committee, it comes to us. And then we make a decision, because then it's, we're the deciders anyway. Rather than it coming to Karen, coming to us, going to them, coming to us.
right.
So I think part of that could be just in the language. I mean, again, just not presenting it as being vetted by a committee, but being, somebody submits a letter of interest, Karen then
Sends it to the chair.
and the chair has the opportunity to comment or
Right.
something along those lines. And I don't think you're suggesting
Yeah.
otherwise,
Yeah,
Peg.
that's,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
but so that they don't feel like and aren't being ruled out by a committee, but that the committee has an opportunity to comment.
Right.
But I agree, it does put it us at risk of increasing insularity,
Yeah.
but that's the judgment of the select board to decipher the reality of that anyway.
So if I was to send, and I would want something in writing anyway, so
Right.
we have it on record.
But clarification on that should not be a requirement of a person, because that's a hurdle to getting onto a committee.
True.
And
So-
that's why that's
Exactly.
one of
Yeah.
the changes
Yeah.
I put here is
Yeah.
that if they're going to come, that they need to come to either verbally or
Right.
in
Exactly.
Right.
Right, so
Yeah.
verbally, they would have to come to a meeting.
Or they could
Express
call
an
to
interest to
me.
you.
Yeah.
That would be
Okay.
my feeling.
Yeah.
Oh, but then that puts, I don't know how I feel about
Yeah.
putting Karen in the middle of
I
all
don't
this.
appoint on
Yeah,
committees, that's select. board.
Well, I think, again, if you're looking at hurdles, if you're inviting somebody who has never been in front of a meeting and might be interested in helping out, and you're asking to come here and express their interest, that feels like, I mean, we have been told that that's a hurdle.
Right.
So I think that, and I'm not trying to peg Karen with this,
Yeah.
I'm just saying that it would be, that's the most streamlined process, is for, whether it's in writing or verbal, if it comes to Karen, she's gonna bring it to our attention, and then it isn't incumbent upon a person to show up at a meeting, which I think people see as a hurdle.
okay, if that's the case, then I think I would say that it can't be verbal. I think it has to be written, because otherwise, we as a select board are not hearing that
Right.
person's intent for wanting to be on the committee and how they think their committee, what they're interested in doing meshes with the mission of the commission or the committee. I think then we're leaving it up to Karen to have to interpret a verbal
Right.
statement, and that feels not okay.
If it's gonna be verbal, it should go to the chair of that committee.
Or,
And that
Or
And that-
directly to the select board.
Or directly here.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm saying.
it's tricky,
Yes.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
a tough
if you want to
one.
submit a letter, fine, but if you're
Right.
doing it verbally, then I think you have to come and talk to us. I don't know how else to do that.
Right.
If you're not comfortable with that, then write it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what's been conveyed to us is how intimidating this is.
Yeah.
For some people, to come and to have to present themselves. So maybe it conveys in writing to the town manager or verbally to a select board member or a committee chair.
I'm not seeing how that flows then. Tell me how that flows, because I'm not seeing it. I don't think it's okay for somebody just to talk to Eric and
Right.
tell Eric and have Eric come and relay.
Right.
I think we
For-
as a committee, we as a select board, if I'm gonna appoint somebody to a committee and take it seriously, I need to hear from that person, either verbally or in writing. I don't want their intent interpreted by somebody else.
Right.
That doesn't
makes
feel,
sense.
So I understand the need, the want to accommodate people who may not feel comfortable writing, or for whatever reason, don't have email or just don't have the capacity. People who don't speak English too are going to have, or speak English well or whatever, they're gonna have, they're gonna have access issues as well. I just wanna say that, as far as grieving a property is concerned, a grievance has to be in writing. So, it's already kind of encoded in state law. It doesn't have to be a really thought out, sentence. It doesn't have to be on a specific form.
Grammatically
It can be on a napkin,
right,
and it can just say, I want to grieve. So, maybe if we're clear that we're not looking for a novel, or, a resume or anything like that, that it really just needs to be in writing, in some form, so that basically we have record that you have expressed interest in this committee.
or doing it verbally. I mean, I'm not opposed to having someone choose to come and do
To
it
come
verbally,
here,
and
yeah.
do it verbally.
Yeah,
But-
and
So it's not really having a document that's the most important thing to me. The most important thing is that we get to hear
Yeah,
from a person what their intent is, what their,
that's fine. I do hear that people are intimidated.
Yeah, no, and I'm not trying to argue this point from a person. I largely agree with you, Peg. I just know it has been being in a select board meeting has been pointed out to us as a hurdle.
well, why don't we
and-
offer this? Why don't we say, if that's the case and somebody doesn't feel comfortable writing, so we're giving two choices, right?
Yeah.
So, fine, if somebody doesn't want to come to the select board meeting, they can write their interest. If they can't write or struggle with writing or language is an issue, I'm more than happy to offer to help them write a letter, but I want to help them do that and then bring that letter here. I don't want to come in and say to you what I think they were saying. You know what I mean?
Right.
So maybe that's a service we have to offer. If I don't think we're gonna run into this that many times.
No. Again, I'm more arguing it as a technicality that's been pointed out to us on
Right.
Yeah.
numerous occasions. So,
I also am thinking that possibly we're talking about a policy here, and then we're also talking about a procedure.
I totally
Um,
agree.
So maybe
Yeah.
that's something that comes down the line,
Yeah.
where we take this document and then we write a procedure that actually works
Yeah.
within the document.
Yeah.
I guess, are we agreeing that, basically they need to be in writing, or they need to come, and then we'll come up with something to accommodate the outliers?
Yeah, but I'm still not sure that we're clear about the flow. Is it,
I think
To
it has to come to
Karen.
Karen, because
To
the
Karen.
board, the board changes every year.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
you can't say it's gonna go to the chair, because the chair changes, that changes, but Karen's gonna be here forever, so. We're always gonna have a town manager, right?
So,
that,
yeah.
so that's the flow that probably should
okay,
happen.
so it goes to Karen, goes to the
It
town
goes to the
manager.
town manager.
Right.
Goes
Yeah.
to the town manager, and the town manager, communicates with the chair of the committee,
Yeah,
who is invited to what? Invited to,
so.
I'm
what's the-
concerned we're still doing procedure as opposed to policy.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay,
But I might be wrong.
I think you're right. I think that, the vehicle that it gets to the town of Putney Select Board
Is
is
not-
not important, because most things,
Starts with me.
it usually
Yeah.
starts with
Right.
Karen, so
Right.
I think
it doesn't
that's,
have to be in the policy,
right, I think we're good there.
okay. Okay,
Okay.
We beat that one to death.
okay, all right, so, let's see if we got all the points here. Clarify that the communication should be made to the select board, yes. Number 3, offer the option to communicate interest either in writing or verbally,
Mhm.
okay? Change number 4, connect membership to the mission of the committee, commission board, make that explicit in what we're asking them to do, tell us.
Okay,
Number 5, clarify that the select board may but is not required to solicit feedback from the current members.
okay.
And 6, I removed the language that said that we could remove people from the committee for no reason at all. I just don't understand that language.
I think that might have come from another policy. But for
Any
any
reason
reason,
is
any
fine.
reason is the same thing as, we
No
don't have
reason
to,
at all.
right?
Yeah.
Right, any reason
We
is
can
fine.
come up with any reason, it's because it's Thursday.
Right,
Yeah,
It-
so,
Well, so,
but I
but
think
it
that
is saying the same thing.
it is
You-
saying the same
it
thing,
is,
it's not,
but
it's not
it is
negative.
not, it's just.
It's
that
not as
it's
arbitrary.
really bad
Yeah.
optics.
Yeah, it's not as arbitrary.
Well, I mean, from a legal standpoint, it would be, if we're not making that clear, then we would say that they have to be removed for cause.
That's what I was just about to say.
Right.
Good cause, yeah.
So, you know, if there are, I don't know about the reality of that. I mean, when we initially worked on this, I know Larry had
He did,
input in
yeah,
this
yes,
and said, there doesn't have to be a reason,
Right.
which in legal terms translate without cause.
Correct.
So maybe any is just, the optics of any maybe is just fine.
Well, what
Why don't we go-
what is the problem with having a good cause requirement?
For what?
With having a cause requirement?
Yeah,
Right.
I guess the definition of cause could be complicated.
well, it could, but I guess I'm just thinking in terms of things that I've seen, in, various documents in my career where the term good cause is intentionally left nebulous, but what it does is it essentially provides a reason or basis for removal or taking something away from somebody, as opposed to it being potentially deemed arbitrary.
I think that the main reason this appeared in this policy is that we wanted to, at the time, we wanted to make it explicitly clear that the select board had the authority to appoint and unappoint people
Right.
for any reason.
Well, then we don't have to have a good cause requirement. I'm just
Well,
throwing
it
that
just-
Well,
out.
that's
But I mean, that
the
was-
thing. I mean, it's the same, our contract with Karen, for example.
Right.
We or she can terminate, as long as we give appropriate notice, we can terminate her contract without cause.
Yeah.
Right.
I
Well,
mean, it's
that's,
just,
that's fine. I just threw it out there.
Yeah, no, I mean, the without cause part, I would say where it would come up would be personality conflicts. I mean, if Karen could no longer work with this board, not for any specific reason, but she just can't stand us anymore, that's not cause, but she's eligible to walk away if she chooses to, and vice versa. So I think the select board having that ability on committees is probably important, because when you
Right.
get the wrong person in a committee situation, and I've certainly seen it a handful of times over the years where there were people we should have removed that we didn't. And a big part of that was always the discussion of, well, what are the optics and so on. And it's like, well, sometimes it just doesn't work. And sorry, there isn't a reason, but,
And things change too.
and things
over
change.
time.
So,
Right.
So-
Right.
and
I'm not opposed to kicking people off a committee
Yeah.
if they're not working.
No.
And not going into great detail about it and dragging it out into the public sphere, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. But it's just my preference is to take for no reason at all out of the language. But if anybody else feels super strongly about it.
I agree with you, unless there's some legal reason to keep it in.
Well-
And I think once we agree on this, we'll probably bring it back to Larry, and
yes, I
so
think we should.
he'll be the final weigher on that. But
I-
I agree that it's not necessary, and
It doesn't sound
it
great.
doesn't sound great. No.
I mean, we could also just not have any reason in there either. Members may be removed at any time by a majority vote of the total membership.
Yeah, in other words, you don't have
Yeah.
to.
We're not
essentially-
clarifying
I'm fine
whether
with
there's a
that.
reason
Yeah,
or
maybe
not.
that's best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if
Okay.
we vote to remove somebody, the reality is if we're gonna end up in court over something like this, we're gonna end up in court over it regardless of what the
What the
policy
reason was, right.
says, so.
Yep.
Well, essentially, if you have any reason, some people might think
Well,
the optics may not be good.
yes, and it also allows discretion in talking, I mean, in the circumstance, for example, of a personality conflict, do we really want to be discussing that in public, why we're doing this?
Right.
No.
No.
Karen's just impossible, so we just can't work with her anymore.
Hey.
So,
That's what you do to me.
You're having a tough night, aren't you?
So,
she knows it's unjust, fortunately.
so it sounds like the only thing that's really still in question is the issue of what is this referring to? Committee, commission, board?
Mhm.
What groups are we talking about here?
Well, who are you targeting? Is it, because you have advisory committees, right?
Could it just be
Well,
the
actually-
town, could it just be the town of Putney appointment policy?
What, do we want that to?
I don't think so.
I
That's-
think you have to be careful with that
Oh,
because
because of,
you do appoint certain
yeah,
people.
no, you're right.
Right.
Volunteer appointment policy, or I don't know.
I mean, we use the same, we have used the same procedure for listers. Like, they're not, well, I guess they're
They're
volunteers, but they're, they get a stipend, so,
But they're elected.
they're also elected.
But we
So
do,
your
but we do
sanitary
appoint them.
commissioners too, right? So they're
Yeah.
elected.
Yep.
So you need to be really,
So what
Clear.
commissions would fall into this? This is part of my thing. When I
Planning-
first came on the
Planning
select board, I had to make a big map of
Planning
like,
commission.
what is the committee, what is the commission, what is the board, what things fall under what, it's so freaking confusing.
So,
we have so many right now.
Yeah.
Right,
And every time we create an advisory committee, yeah, you're adding more.
right.
So,
I'm gonna say that question probably also is a procedure issue. Because I think that I'm working this through in my mind, and I'm pretty sure that we use pretty much the same
Right.
practice, with the possible exception of the select board. But we use that same practice on pretty much any any board, commission, or committee that I've been aware of.
So it could be a generic appointment
It could be,
policy.
yeah, and then beyond that, there should be a list of procedures where maybe we say,
In the case
in
of.
the case of,
yeah.
say, an elected position, we may change it this way. If it's the town manager, that's it's accepting the town manager and the town clerk. I mean, taking those pieces that are exceptions out of the workflow.
So wait,
I
are you
think that-
saying
I mean,
just do generic?
Just Town of Putney
appointments?
appointment policy.
Well, if we're talking committees, commissions, and boards, who here, and appointment, everybody here,
Mhm.
who is not included in this?
Everybody's included in.
Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Well, tree warden, weigher of coal, and we don't go through this procedure with all of those people because it's unnecessary.
Right.
But they are appointments, and we could, if we had a fence viewer that was really interested, and we had two sitting fence viewers, we might want to say to them, can you two work with so-and-so, So I think we do appointments beyond
Committees.
committees, commissions, and boards.
in theory, we won't do it anymore, but an animal control officer,
Right.
a constable. I mean, there are quite a few actually that we would appoint, that
Okay.
most of this would apply to.
Non-employee appointments.
Right.
Although a number,
Yeah.
some of those
Are
that
they
I was,
employees?
non-employee.
No, non-employed, well, so that would automatically exclude town manager and the town clerk.
Well, the town clerk technically is under my, even though,
Still an appointed position though.
no, he was appointed only because we went from elected to appointed. and
Right.
We
I know,
had to
but-
have,
I think
town
it's
clerk.
still appointed.
I think that's correct. We haven't,
We haven't
technically, I
had
think
to,
we have to
but-
reappoint him, don't
Yeah.
we?
No.
Not him.
No.
But
Now, whose purview is it?
he's a full-time employee.
yeah, but
Right.
say he left and we
Yeah.
had to get another town clerk, I'm pretty sure that the select board would have to appoint
Appoint
a
that
new
person.
town
I
clerk.
think that's right.
I don't know, that's a gray area,
Yeah, I'm
so,
not sure. So
But-
unpaid appointments, or although some of them
Well,
are. I mean,
listers.
that's-
Right.
What about, but who are the employees, if we say non-employee appointments?
That's
we have 12 employees.
tricky.
But
Well, but we
Yeah,
have the
but-
fire department, I mean, we don't appoint
Yeah,
them,
but-
that's
Appoint
different,
them.
but.
wouldn't that include all the people we want to include and exclude the people we want to exclude?
What?
If you did non-employee appointments.
Are our listers
We don't
considered
need to do
employees?
this for.
No, they're elected.
Okay, so maybe you're right.
They
that
get a
might-
stipend,
Yeah,
but
so
they're
it
not
just
really, they don't
separates
get
out the
benefits.
employees from this.
Non-employee.
Yeah.
Okay,
And maybe that doesn't have to be, I mean, this could be the town of Putney appointment policy, and then, this policy applies to all non-employees.
Right, that's
Yeah.
true, that's
Yeah,
true,
let's
that's
do-
even better.
let's do it that way.
Okay, Town of Putney appointment policy,
Yeah,
and then we'll start with, applies to all non-employee. Okay,
And very basically, Peg, and I might be wrong in this, but I think one of the basic answers, and you may have discovered this or may be able to correct me, commissions are statutory,
yeah,
committees are not,
okay,
and boards are some variation, some are.
Right, right.
But
Yeah.
that is,
That's the difference.
commissions for staff.
yeah, I was gonna say boards are elected, but that's not true.
Not
The D-
necessarily,
The DRB
yeah.
is a board
Okay,
that's appointed,
that's
yeah.
appointed, yeah.
so the Town of Putney appointment policy, and then somewhere in the very beginning, we'll say it applies to all non-employee appointments. Okay, would you all like me to redraft
Yes.
this and bring it back?
Yes,
And I will get it to you early, so that.
Yeah.
okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Cool, good work.
Yeah.
All right, is there public comment online, Mr. Fairman?
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I congratulate you all on an excellent discussion of this rather complex issue, and I congratulate Select Person Alden on her insights, having looked into it in considerable detail. Because, as you know, I have given some thought to this over the years. I offer some additional observations, which, of course, as always, are worth what you paid for them. The first is that everything you were talking about is governed by the remote open meeting law, and therefore is a public proceeding. So concerning the question of no reason at all, the Vermont Supreme Court has actually linked the remote open meeting law to the famous Article 1, Section 6 of the Constitution of the State of Vermont, that government is accountable to the people at all times. Certainly the people are entitled to know why the decision was made. And I know that one can use the legal subterfuge of for cause, but I wonder whether that actually would honor the remote open meeting law. So I'm offering that as a consideration. Now you have alluded to that there are statutory boards and commissions. So a statutory board, for example, is the DRB, commissions, the Cemetery Commission, and the Planning Commission. Now, in terms of removing members of those, there needs to be some sort of safeguard against, they took a decision regarding zoning, for example, that members of the select board disagreed with, so they decided to remove someone from that board. And I'm simply speaking theoretically here. I'm not insinuating anything. So there probably needs to be some care regarding boards and commissions that have that are empowered by Vermont statute. Now, if a committee is able to say we would prefer that this person not be to say to our select board, we prefer that this person not be appointed to our committee. Effectively, they are taking the power, they are assuming the power to appoint people to their committee. And certainly, this is a power that no committee can have. It's only a select board that can have that power in a Dillon's rule state such as Vermont. Finally, you were picking on our town manager. I simply will rise in her defense. But,
Thank you, Howard.
that actually was not germane to your discussion, because Vermont is an employment at will state, and you so stated without naming it as such. But appointed members of boards and commissions are not employees. So the employment at will I can't think of another word, argument really doesn't apply here. So I just offer those as grist for a mill, and as I remind you, they are worth what you paid for them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion?
I wonder, and I don't know the answer to this, Larry, I'm sure somebody would, but are there statutory clarifications within the definitions of, for example, a, whatever it might be, cemetery commission as to how a member can be? I don't know whether statute governs that or not.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that any elected position, unless they were appointed by the select board,
Definitely
is not subject to removal.
I would totally agree with you. Yes.
So it would only be those.
So cemetery commission, you're right, but conservation commission.
Conservation
Right.
Commission.
I don't know. I just don't know whether it just because it's statutory. How into the weeds does the statutory definition get of appointment and removal? Don't know. Just a
Right, well, and another example where we saw a differentiation was around the appointment to the Board of Rescue. And,
Right.
you
Well,
know,
that was a separate.
and that was a separate,
It's not a town,
It's
but
not even a town.
yeah.
right.
And I do know that, I don't know the ins and outs and whether they gave cause, but I do know that, was it Guilford? Abolished their entire planning commission and then reappointed them recently. It, made waves in the newspapers, so I know that there's an avenue for doing that. I'm not saying that we're going to do that, I'm just saying that it's possible. Does anybody else have any discussion on the board? Mr. Fairman?
Madam Chair, you are correct that no public body has the authority to override voters. So yes, indeed, the cemetery commissioners serve until they are not elected again. But on the other hand, the planning commissioners, you do have control over who serves on that. You know, regarding rescue, that was an interesting situation.
I'm sorry I brought it up.
I understood at an earlier meeting that where I was present, that an earlier Town of Putney Select Board meeting, that you were told by the executive director of Rescue Inc. that select boards appoint trustees to rescue. But you did, and they said we will not seat that person, which raises some very interesting questions because they receive public funds. And I'm not sure how that, I'm not a lawyer and I've not in any way looked into this, but it seems to create an interesting situation. But of course, on the other hand, they are a 501c3 nonprofit corporation. They are in no way part of any government.
Yes.
But I just thought I would offer those comments on that, once again, to differentiate that sort of area from what we're talking about here, which is people whom you actually have the power to appoint to statutory boards and committees, but also to advisory committees, whom, for whatever reason, you decide to constitute. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion on the board? Are we ready to move on? Okay, next piece is to discuss authorizing the treasurer to pay accounts payable and payroll when warranted. So this has come up because today is Thursday and normally we sign the warrants on Wednesday, and there was some vacations happening and other people weren't in the building. So in order not to impact payroll and accounts payable, Karen's wondering if we would be willing to go down this route. And I'm just going to, before we get into discussion, I'm just going to read the motion that Karen and I came up with. And I'm not making the motion, I'm just reading what we wrote. So it would be to authorize the treasurer / assistant treasurer to pay accounts payable and payroll at the discretion of the town manager / finance director when warranted.
I just have a question. Warranted in this case, meaning warrants having been issued.
No, when needed, I guess is when.
So
Yeah.
I would just, that to me is just slightly confusing.
When they've been warranted.
Once they've been,
Yeah, okay.
so.
So I would not do this like all the time.
Right.
So this particular week, because we are meeting on Thursday, I don't have anyone in the office tomorrow, including myself, and then Monday's a holiday.
Wait.
So, which means on Wednesday, if we could have signed all the checks, they would have gone out today and things would have been fine. But now, accounts payable technically won't go out until Tuesday. Because I'm not gonna make Kim stay here and sign everything and then put them in envelopes and get them out the door. So, on rare occasions like this is when I would want to have either Kim or Cass sign the checks. I will tell you, we pushed payroll through, and I had Kim sign the check for the WEX because, you know, if it's late, then we end up, yeah, we
Yeah.
have a late fee.
Yeah.
And there was one month when it was $800, and I'm not willing to do that.
Right.
So it's on rare occasions.
I know that and I know Brattleboro is a charter town, but I believe that this is also allowed within statute, that the select board can authorize a single signer on the select board to sign warrants as well. So that might be something that we might want to explore in the future,
That the chair could,
the chair or whoever, I think in Brattleboro they rotate.
yeah.
But it's, you know, it still provides that check, for check and balance for the audit, I guess is really what it comes down to, but it doesn't,
Well, the warrants would be
Come up
signed anyway.
After the fact.
Right.
Right.
After the fact.
Yeah, no,
Right.
I mean, I have no objection to this
Mhm.
in, sort of in theory. I think before we make a motion on it, we should be clear about the legal implications of the language, and I don't, maybe it's just fine. I mean,
you don't need this week? It's already kind of done.
it's a moot point this week, right?
Yeah, we'll be done once
Okay.
you approve them tonight
All
anyway.
right, so the question, so can we just change, can somebody come up with a good word, a synonym to warranted?
In a rare occasion.
Or, you know, when the select board is unavailable to approve them in a timely fashion, maybe that's more than it need, I don't know,
I was
that's what.
thinking emergencies, but then I was thinking, well, what's an emergency?
Right,
Can you
exactly.
read it again, please?
The whole thing?
Yeah.
Authorize the treasurer/assistant treasurer to pay accounts payable and payroll at the discretion of the town manager/finance director when warranted.
Appropriate? That's too vague.
When,
I mean, when needed is true,
right,
but that's
necessary,
necessary.
When required.
Yeah.
I think that's probably fine. I mean,
I
you
mean,
know,
And then
it's,
we'll-
it's at discretion.
necessary or required, yeah.
It's not like it's just,
Yeah, willy-nilly, just you
Yeah.
can do this, yeah,
I've been here 4 years and I've never had to ask you to
Right.
do this, but.
yeah.
Right,
You know.
so we will, we'll send this language off to Larry.
Yeah.
If we, maybe we don't, I might be big, I just think it should be clear, you know, we should make sure that we're not doing something that,
Well, I can tell you Newfane did it. Like,
same thing.
every week they have to do payroll and
Oh.
accounts payable, and they only meet every other week. So
So,
she's signing checks over there on the off week. She just does it. But they authorized her to do that.
and is she elected?
Yes.
So that might be a different circumstance. Because our treasurer is not elected. I'm not sure. I'm just, again, that's sort of why I'm
True.
saying.
Good point. I didn't think of that, but, we can
I just think we
work
should
that
get the
I
language
think,
right.
I think
So-
it's a good idea to run it by Larry.
out. Okay.
Plus I don't like the
Or
word
Samantha.
required, yeah, one of them.
Yeah.
I don't like the word required necessarily, but
Yeah.
it's, we know what we're trying to say.
Right.
When necessary, yeah.
Right,
So if we,
so we're gonna table this right now and just, and we'll send this off to Larry. Is there further discussion on the board? Mr. Fairman?
You might have a word.
Madam Chair, should I defer to the town manager?
No, do you have a comment?
Yes, but I thought I heard the town manager say, may I have a word?
Nope, she's good.
No, I'm good.
Okay. Two things. First, concerning when warranted, something you could do is state exactly what it is you are referring to, which appears to be something such as when the select board is not meeting on its regularly scheduled date. And I'm not trying to fill in for Larry here. I'm simply saying that when warranted is pretty vague, and it seems like that's what you're actually talking about. And there might be something to be said for actually saying it.
Okay.
The other thing I should mention, since it turns out that postponing your meeting has caused certain procedural problems, as I shall be explaining at a subsequent meeting, there is no constitutional nor legal basis for you to accede to postponing your meeting upon a general request of a committee. I'll say more on that later. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the board? No? Okay, so moving on to select board unfinished business. There's nothing under here.
I just want to mention that on the minutes of the last meeting, section 9B, which is entitled Author Resolution Amendment, Review and Approval, after much discussion and a starting guideline by the select board, but the select board agrees to table the resolution until the October 6th meeting.
Right.
And my recollection is that we had a discussion last time about ARPA funds. And when the select board could set aside X dollars or X percent of the $734,000 for emergency or similar circumstance when necessary. And you all asked me to try to draft some language that could be considered for this purpose. And so maybe I didn't do it appropriately or in a timely enough fashion, but I sent you all an email a day or two ago
You did,
with
yes.
some proposed wording, and I don't know whether you want to discuss that now, because
Well-
I didn't print it out.
No, so this is, it was sort of my fault. I kind of just forgot that we were gonna put that on this meeting. So it didn't
Oh, no,
so it didn't make it to the agenda. So,
Okay, we'll do it another time.
so I touched base with Peg to
Yeah.
just make sure that it wasn't gonna mess up the ARPA committee meeting, because I think they're meeting like next week. Or they're meeting
27th.
before,
27th,
oh, so we're still good.
you're still good.
So we're still gonna meet before, okay. So it was really, we just wanted to do it before they meet again. So
Okay,
we're,
well,
I think
I think that,
if it doesn't make it to the agenda,
yeah, okay.
send me an email and say, hey, Eileen, you were supposed to put this on the agenda.
Or
I'll
or
make
can you
sure.
make note of that?
Yeah, I'll
Right.
make sure it goes on.
But so it was just an oversight. I think we don't want to discuss it now, first of all, because we didn't make an adjustment to the agenda to
Right.
begin with, and also the ARPA committee is not aware that we're talking about it.
Well, I just
So-
wanted to bring that up,
Yeah.
that's all.
No, thank you for sending the
Okay.
language. Sorry, I forgot
I
about
don't know
it.
whether you're gonna print it out or whatever you all want to do.
If you send it
It'll
to
be in the packet
Kara, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
for the 19th.
Okay. So, but thank you very much for the
Oh,
language.
sure. I just wanted to let you know I did my homework.
Yes, you did.
We saw
You
it.
did it. You did the right thing. Okay. So, the next piece is the warrants to the treasurer. Reason we're here.
I'll make a motion to approve and execute the warrants to the treasurer as presented upon completion of review.
Second.
I have a couple of questions.
Hold on.
We're gonna discuss this.
1 second. It's been moved and seconded to approve and execute the warrants upon completion of review. Let's let Karen.
Payroll warrant dated October 7th, 2022, in the amount of $20,083.97.
Right, does anybody have a question on the payroll warrant?
No.
I don't either. Okay, moving on.
Accounts payable warrant dated September 24th through October 7th, 2022, in the amount of $287,821.81. I bring to your attention the Caterpillar financial that in the amount of $18,292.46 is the excavator payment. We probably have about, I think it's 4 more. I don't have it in front of me. Chesterfield Tire, $9,766.88. That is for 14 tires for the highway department. I did not get a chance to talk to Brian, but it looks like at least 3 trucks, but there's 6 tires. I don't know where they went, but pretty expensive. Dufresne Group is $2,500. That is for the sidewalk study with V-Trans,
Yeah.
the V-Trans grant that we ended up with. So that's the first invoice for that project, for the Putney Landing sidewalk feasibility. Fairfield, $9,295. This is a piece of equipment. So, was it back in May? We ordered a leaf blower.
Oh,
We
yeah.
had a grant. We were waiting on a piece of something that goes on the blower. And it didn't come, it didn't come, it didn't come. Well, the leaf blower finally came in. The grant expired, so we couldn't capitalize on the grant. Brian did have a direct expense in his capital budget for $10,000. He and I talked about it, because I asked him, I said, what do you want to do? He's like, well, they haven't got the part, you know, it's like, I don't know. He goes, I don't. So he decided to buy the leaf blower through the budget. So, you know, it's unfortunate. That grant might have come back around, but, you know, Fairfield's probably could have sold the leaf blower too, but he said he ordered it because he needed it, so.
Okay.
And the grant wasn't for the total amount, I don't believe, was it?
No.
6,000,
Yeah, it was there was no match on that one,
and it was the total, oh, I thought it was like
Yeah.
a $6,000 grant.
no.
Oh, We
So-
couldn't have had them paid, we probably had to have the equipment before we could.
Well, here's the thing with that grant, so you had to have the piece of equipment.
Right.
You had to take pictures, and you had to take pictures out doing the work.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
so,
where do we blow these? Just out of curiosity.
out of the ditch,
Okay.
out of the ditch. So, yeah.
They just go along the dirt roads, and it's a huge blower that is on the back with the exit for the blower is very low to the ground, so it just,
It's-
everything just goes whoosh off.
So it's
Yeah.
blowing it off the sides of the roads.
It's pretty amazing too. We
Yeah.
used to vacuum them up, and that was a huge pain in the neck. This is a much more effective process.
Cool.
So
Small one.
the county of Wyndham, so that's Wyndham County, that's our second payment for, our assessment of $10,096. So that's basically our assessment. It's based on population and it supports the county budget.
Right.
Primarily the court system.
Yes.
Yeah.
US Bank, $189,010.88. That is the bond payment for the fire station, wastewater treatment plant, and the gravel pit with an interest. And Wyndham Solid Waste Management, $4,104.33. Again, that's another assessment that's paid quarterly. So those are some oddball. And then, let me see. There's a couple people in here that did get a credit, a property tax credit, because their homestead exemption came through. So like Gail White's, and let's see, the Laura Heck is something, oh, she's the gardener at the library.
Okay.
But that's kind of, those are the
Okay.
different things. This was a big warrant. I
Because
mean,
it was,
could-
because it was the quarter, right? because that's,
That
Is that
and
one?
the bond payment.
The bond payment.
I mean, I could have held back and paid it the next warrant, but
uh-huh.
I'm trying to do it so we have a large and a small every month, and we'll see if that works.
Okay.
Not that it's gonna make a difference, but
Can I ask a question about the gardener at the
library.
library?
Yeah.
Why did, can you just give me some context for having a gardener at the library as opposed to having a gardener in front of our town hall to keep our steps cleared of,
I know the
You know, like-
stuff, yeah. So we contracted for a landscaper, and since I've been here, I think it's a specialty, and you gotta get the right person to maintain gardens. And what Emily's done, and she's had 2 different people, but they end up getting full-time jobs, and then they can't do the gardens, so.
so she's budgeted to have a gardener down there.
Well, we are too. I mean,
Here?
we just gotta find the right person.
Oh, so we just can't find somebody to do
Right.
it, is that it?
So, I had a gentleman who lives in town, and he offered to help. You know, and he started,
On a volunteer basis.
yeah, and he started doing some of it, but I really would like to find a professional gardener that knows flowers and knows hedges and bushes and trees, and they can handle it all. I did put a Facebook post out to see if we could create a garden club.
Right.
And, you know, because there's a lot of people with experience with
Mhm.
gardens.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about just the general, like, maintenance of the front of the town hall, you know, and I'm
I have
like,
my
oh, well,
lockers.
if they can pay for somebody to garden down at the library, can't we get somebody to, you know,
You know-
keep the front of the town, just even the steps cleared off, you
Right.
know?
I have my lockers in the car.
Yeah, that's not your job, no.
It's not, but if it has to be done, then, you know, it's like cleaning the bathroom. Is that my job too? No, but if it needs to be clean, you gotta do it, right? You know, we used to have, one of the highway
Uh-huh.
people come down and do certain maintenance. And let me just tell you, on Fridays, I can usually get Jason and Lenny to do just about anything for me now. But, which is good. But yeah, so the gardens out here,
Yeah.
I have to have a plan for it, and I need to have a professional gardener. I just don't want any landscaper that just, you know, throws mulch down on the ground and, you know, that's it, and then blows up leaves in the fall. I don't want it.
Right.
You know, if we're gonna renovate here and have a tenant upstairs, that's a memorial garden out there.
So
Well, I just want to
it's
say
really,
I support you in
Thank
doing
you.
whatever needs to be
Yeah.
done to
No,
keep the front
I'm,
of the town
yeah.
hall spruced up. you
no,
know?
I'm embarrassed by that whole mess out there.
and it has, as you've
It
probably
did,
seen
yeah.
over time,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, sometimes it gets ahead and sometimes it gets
Yeah.
behind. But is there a budget line item for
Yes.
that?
Yes.
So that's the, finding the person to,
Finding the right person that can tend to the gardens.
Right.
And it's not just, you know, it's each season, you know?
Yeah.
Because I'd like to see spring flowers and then summertime, you know?
Yeah.
And then the fall ones come up. That's never happened out here,
Right.
you know?
well, it has in the past, but not in your time.
Not
Yeah,
recently.
no, not really.
It's been, it's
Yeah.
been a while.
Yeah.
Well, I just support you in not feeling, especially if it's budgeted, and not feeling like you have to corral volunteers to do it, but that, you know, I support you
Thank you.
in spending the money and getting, you know, if possible, getting someone to take care of it.
Yeah.
The other thing that might be ideal would be to have somebody who did that, who was willing and able to work with volunteers, because then you,
Right.
you know, and not necessarily a requirement, but, you know, hey, let's do a cleanup day on
Mhm.
whatever, or
Right.
something like that.
I wish Landmark had like a horticulture, you know?
Yeah, there you go.
You know, Brad,
Or horticulture or anything.
You know, the high
On
school
my civic
does.
engagement class, maybe I'll get them to come down and clean up. But
There
I
you
don't,
go.
the point is, I think it should be, you know, like.
Tidier.
It should be tidier.
Yeah.
It
Yes.
should be like, we shouldn't have to like beg somebody to volunteer to do it.
No, I agree with
You know
you.
what I mean? I think we should just prioritize it and spend, you know, find somebody to do it. And
So you're gonna get somebody to do it before, or are you gonna just leave it?
And to sit through
I
the
mean,
winter, you mean?
Yeah.
It needs to be,
It needs
yeah,
to
it
be,
needs to
there's
be
locust
Okay.
trees growing
Growing
up.
back up,
Yeah.
yeah.
all over the
I mean,
place,
even-
which they're gonna do for years,
They're
of
gonna-
course.
yeah.
Right, but they're gonna get bigger, you know.
Yeah.
It doesn't need a rocket scientist out there, just a landscaper to
For some of
at
it,
least
yeah.
trim the
We'll just
bushes
clear it out, yeah.
and
I
knock
need
everything
somebody to
down.
get those thorny bushes out.
Those
They
are
have
the-
big thorns in them.
That's
They-
the locust, isn't it?
Well, some, but barber is
bite.
probably what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
they bite.
But it
Oh,
really
right.
should just be cleaned up, even if it's just weed whacked down.
For this year.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
just
the
make it
time
look
of year.
presentable, it doesn't,
Yeah,
Look
cause see,
at
I
that.
don't know what's out there. I'm not knowledgeable about, you know, and if you think weed whacking it right down, I mean, I can have the highway guys do that.
Well,
But
yeah.
I mean, if,
Yeah.
if
Might
there's
be a
nothing that
little
comes
risky.
up, it sounds like you're gonna end up spending some money to get, if you want flowers to come up, you know, it's gonna take money to get somebody in there to plant
That
them.
whole garden out there needs to be redone.
Right.
period.
Well, then there,
So
if there's
just-
nothing worth
exactly.
saving, then
No, there isn't.
just have
Well,
somebody weed whack it.
But, yeah, no, I
It's
would,
that time of
I would
year
argue
anyways.
that it would be worth getting somebody in
To
who
actually
knows
look at it,
whether
yeah.
there's
Right.
stuff where it's, because, you know,
Right.
we don't wanna, I mean, I agree, it needs to be redone, but X percentage of the stuff that's in there might be perfectly viable specimens that you can keep.
Well, I have
And you just gotta
peonies out there,
interplant.
we have peonies out
Exactly.
there that
So we
are
don't want those
viable,
just
right.
going away,
You know, the trees out front, you know,
our planted trees.
I guess there's,
Yeah,
I'm
that's
thinking of the
right.
difference between a garden and maintenance. You know, just getting the steps cleared of
Yeah.
weeds
Oh.
doesn't take a
Right,
gardener.
Yes.
You know, that's like a maintenance thing,
And that
right?
money's already allocated, might as well get somebody in there
Just at least do that
to
part
get
of
the
it.
basics cleaned up.
and there's overlap between, I mean, I agree with you and I hear what you're saying, Peg, I think there's both are,
Yeah, I'm
maintaining is important, it would be
Right.
great if we could spruce things up as well.
agreed.
Yeah.
Okay, you had a question?
Yeah, I just, Karen, what is the, expenditure for Simon Operating Services of $10,905 for?
that's our wastewater treatment contractor, contract,
So wastewater and water,
yeah. So we have
They
two
manage
different
those.
invoices.
and that's an annual contract. So
It shows up quite
that's a
well.
monthly payment on an
Yeah, that's
annual
a
contract.
monthly.
We'll see that pretty
Ah,
much all the
okay.
time. All right, does anybody have any other questions on the warrants? All right, hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? I've lost my agenda again. Okay, so that's the warrants. The treasurer, town manager's report.
I don't have one tonight.
Alrighty. Other business, closing comments, and the SB addenda. Has anybody done any work on the stuff on the back?
I did
You
membership
did
policy.
do membership
Yay.
policy. Yay, yes, absolutely.
We can't quite cross it off,
No, we
No,
can't cross
but
the
we
line.
can, it's
I
made
can put
progress.
in progress.
Good. All right, and there was, well, it says,
Where
Can I
does-
ask a question?
yeah,
Tobacco policy draft, has the board reviewed that? Cause I'd like to put it on the October 19th.
I did review it, and
Sorry, Karen, I have not seen
think
it.
that
When
was
did,
when-
where did
Was
was
we,
that last meeting?
Was it last meeting or 2 meetings ago?
you gave us a paper copy?
Mhm.
Can you send it electronically again, just to make sure? Did we get it
I think
electronically?
it was in
Yes, you did.
Oh,
That
it was. Okay,
that
so I
that
can
would be
find
good
it.
anywhere, a little remiss.
I just wanna remind you that it's
Okay.
on the table.
Okay,
I don't see the blight ordinance on our,
Well, I can talk to that briefly.
well, we don't need to talk to it, I
Yeah,
just
but
want to.
let's not
I
talk
can
about
add
it,
it.
but
I
just,
don't see it
just
on here.
keeping
I just
our,
want it on there.
keeping our toes in the fire a little bit here.
Yeah.
You wanted it, oh, it's
I
not in
was-
here?
I'm not seeing it, did I miss
Oh.
it, am I missing
I
it?
thought
No,
it-
you're not missing it.
Okay,
We're missing.
we're missing it.
I've
It
got
was
a little
on here
one.
at one point, I thought.
So Charlie's done a little work, so maybe that could be a brief agenda item for next
Yeah.
Monday.
Okay.
I'm just gonna warn you, the next meeting's gonna be large, so
Okay,
I
so
don't
maybe-
think
Okay.
you wanna be putting too much more on there,
Already.
All right,
so,
well, let's,
Well, I can,
a little at a time,
a little bit of time.
baby steps.
Yes, all right,
well, I can wait till the following meeting.
all right, let's put it on the following meeting.
As long as it's on the,
Eileen, did you wanna do another work session?
I would like to, what's everybody's schedule,
Appetite?
appetite, right?
So
Well, we
dates
wanted-
again, like you did it before, worked well.
A little
Okay.
survey?
Yeah, I
Alright.
mean, I think
Okay,
that,
yeah, why don't you send out another doodle poll? So we wanted to talk about the employee policy during the work session and
Yeah, we
something
can try and
else.
go over the blight call.
Yeah,
Like,
that's a good
ordinance,
idea.
that's a good
Right?
idea. Yep,
Yeah,
yep, okay.
I just wanna remind Josh, October 13th.
Yes.
Thursday,
And what time is that, Karen?
6:30.
6:30, okay.
Just to let you know, I'm in Middlebury, Vermont.
That
which
day,
is
right.
2 hours.
About that, yeah.
So I'm gonna leave there to make it down here for 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So I can let people in. That's gonna be a long day too.
yeah.
Well,
worth
I
it,
can,
Karen,
I
right?
mean,
You
if
get-
you,
you get
if
some
that's a
stuff.
crunch for you, I can certainly come down and let people in. So we can just talk, let's stay in touch about that.
Yeah, I might have you do that.
All right,
I'll have to give you the code,
Oh, we're changed to a code? Which one are you talking about?
the fire department.
Oh, fire department, yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
I used to know that code, but I'm not sure I do.
Okay, so is there other closing comments among the select board? Discussion among the select board. Are there any closing comments or comments online? Doesn't appear so. So the next
Just these
thing
two.
is executive session. Do we need an executive session?
No.
Okay.
Unless you,
Anybody else need an executive session?
No.
Okay, so our next meeting date will be October 19th, 2022, at the town hall and on Zoom. Can I
that's a
hear-
Wednesday night.
It's a Wednesday night.
Act Wednesday.
Can I hear a motion to adjourn?
So,
second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you, everyone.
so that's a
Thank
week
you.
from